for the purpose of conducting the school corporation's business and is not considered a public community meeting. There will be time for public participation as indicated by the agenda. Visitors requesting permission to address the board on a specific agenda item should sign in before the meeting starts on the form at the board table. The board requests a discussion time limit of 3 minutes on any specific agenda item, and we ask that visitors to take only one appearance per item, make only one appearance per item. We ask those addressing the board to speak from the podium and state their name and address board policy, Board policy 0167.3 dictates that personnel issues will not be addressed. Concerns about individual employees of the district should be brought to the superintendent's or designee. The meeting site is fully accessible. Any person requesting further accommodation should contact the superintendent at the school corporation central office. This time, the Board of Trustees respectfully request those guests and visitors in attendance to be courteous and silence their cell phones. Thank you. It's been customary that we start the board meeting, before the board meeting, with a moment of prayer. Mr. Bertrand.
Dear Lord, please be with us tonight as we work with the school and do the school board meeting tonight. Please be with all those that are in our school systems, the employees, the teachers, administrators, and the students. Please be with everyone as we got some weather coming in here within the next few days. Please protect them. And as always, please be with those that serve and protect us for our freedoms. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Call the meeting to order. Pledge of allegiance. Mr. Hurt.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call. All members are present. I would like to introduce and thank you for your service in advance. Lisa Hutcherson is the new school board member that replaced Mr. Herr. So,
Am I gone?
Oh, Mr. Merritt. Hey, that was wishful thinking, Dave.
Hey, you can have
You just got the computer.
I'll be glad to.
They replaced Mr. Merritt. Sorry about that, Mr. Herr. You know those subconscious thinkings?
Yeah, I got the same ones.
No, as a board, we'd like to welcome Lisa onto the board. She is going to play a great role and fit in right with all the things that we're doing. So we do have a quorum present. Mission statement, Mr. Herr.
Lebanon Community School Corporation will cultivate and reach every student by influencing and enriching their lives through the power of education, and do so in a positive and safe learning environment.
Thank you. Good news, Dr. Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Wiry. As you've already mentioned, one of our articles of good news to share is the makeup of our new board. And along with Lisa's addition, we also want to point out that our leadership now with your presidency and Mr. Bertrand as vice president and Mr. Herr as secretary, appreciate your service in that executive leadership of the board. And so thank you very much for that. Also want to share that we're a little light in attendance this evening. I want to share with the board, I did excuse the elementary principals. We have parent-teacher conferences this evening going on at the elementary schools, and while they were riveted by the exciting action that happens here at the school board meeting, we collectively felt maybe it was better if they were present at their own schools. So, but I couldn't keep Mr. O'Rourke or Mr. Dungy away and the normal group of smiling faces back there. But we do have some good news to share, so thank you. This evening it's my pleasure to share with the board and the community. We want to first acknowledge some good public relations presentation. We had a recent television presentation on Fox News highlighting our LHS Building Trades program. It was on Fox News and CBS, and Mr. Ken Acton, Building Trades teacher and also supervisor for the students, along with 2 students, were on camera and just did a great job. I'm very impressed. I don't know if the board had a chance to see that. I shared earlier with Ms. Todderud, who kind of helped facilitate that. I've received about a half dozen calls from industry individuals, not educators, but construction industry individuals, complimenting us on that. And so, and it doesn't hurt when you're trying to sell a house when you have a local media market that promotes it for sales. So great job on that. We appreciate it. Along with that, we want to congratulate our Lebanon girls bowling team that's associated with Lebanon High School. They're moving on to the regionals. While this is not an IHSA sanctioned sport, we have a very active group of bowlers that are provided sponsorship by parents, and they are members of the Indiana High School Bowling Association, and so we congratulate them for their achievement. And likewise, too, it's my pleasure this evening to share with the board congratulations to our lady wrestlers from Lebanon High School. Had the pleasure in joining Mr. O'Rourke and a number of staff members to attend the state championship wrestling Friday night in Hamilton Heights, and Lebanon had 4 wrestlers present, Shelby Cope, Emerson Wolfbrand, and Sarah Hughes, and also for a 3-time state champion, Alexis Burnell. Met Alexis when she was a sophomore here. So I'll share, not only is she a 3-time state champion, I've asked Mr. Levine to tell us if there are any other, either on the male or female side, 3-time state champions in the state of Indiana. But I will share she also was a freshman, as a freshman, was an Illinois state champion. So this is a young lady, phenomenal accomplishment, phenomenal achievement, and when you get to have a chance to meet her, she's just one of the nicest students, great smile, great attitude, and just was an enjoyable evening for me. So being an old wrestling coach and wrestler, I just enjoyed it immensely. It was a great event. I think I counted up there were 120 wrestlers present,
Awesome.
Representing from Mishawaka to West Vigo County to Richmond, all the way down to Vincennes and Greater Clark. So covered the entire state. So Lebanon was well represented. I will also add that Lebanon High School came in 7th in the state tournament. So congratulations to those ladies for a phenomenal job. So, and that's the good news I bring to the board this evening. Thank you for allowing me to share.
Thank you. I know that Alexis, I know Shelby Cope, and there was not as many female wrestlers as once Alexis got in there, and she kind of talked some of them to, hey, why don't you come out and wrestle? And now the program's kind of flourished. So that's great.
I was just impressed. It takes quite a bit to get out on that wrestling mat. It's just you and your opponent. You win or lose, it's you. There's no teammate to blame, no coach to blame. And for those ladies to go out there, and some of them, this was their first opportunity to wrestle this year, and to qualify. This was a qualifying event. This just wasn't show up and you get to go. So they took the top 8 wrestlers in each weight class throughout the state. And again, 4 of our young ladies qualified.
It's awesome.
And just was just excellent. And I must compliment our coaches as well, because they did a good job in representing Lebanon. So my congratulations to Mr. Levine and his department, Mr. O'Rourke, and those young ladies. Obviously, I had a good time, so it was great to be there. So thank you.
Approval of minutes. We need approval, motion for approval of the December 18th regular meeting and the January 8th reorg meeting. Second?
I'll second.
Any questions? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Minutes approved. Audience visitors, and we have no one signed up for audience to visitors, so we will go to item 4, the consent agenda for routine business matters. Mr. Tate.
This report to the board and the community this evening for our year ending December 31, 2018. We had 99.90% of the general fund appropriations were expended. 97% of transportation operation appropriations were expended. Turn your attention to the end of the year cash balance report. You have an Excel sheet in your background notes, I believe. Have the history there from 2010 up to the end of 2018. 2018 cash balance in each fund is, I would say, very pleased. We're in a good financial situation in every single one of our funds. As you realize, some of those funds will disappear and become different names as of January 1 of 19. I'll also point out to you that at this time of year, our cash balance would be high because we have a tax draw in December, spend it down, January through June, have a tax draw in June, so it is should be a peak time of the year, so we're doing this every 6 months. So I'm very pleased with our cash balance. Questions or comments on that from the board?
No.
Okay, at this time, I'd ask for approval of claims numbered 47476 through 47654. The payrolls dated December 21, December 28, and January 4th. I'll point out that December 28 was an extra payroll. We provided the stipends to the teachers, both from the Teacher Appreciation Grant of the state and an additional $250 from Lebanon School Corp, and the stipend to the classified staff. So that was an extra payroll that was put out at the time.
Okay, board, if we can get a motion to approve the claims for payment 47476 through 47654, and payrolls for December 21st, 2018, December 28th, 2018, and January 4th, 2019.
I will make that motion.
Second?
I'll second.
All those in favor, any questions? All those in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed, same sign?
Thank you.
Claims. Thank you, Mr. Tate. Agenda for routine staff matters. Dr.
Thank you,
Taylor.
Mr. Wari. Before I start that, I do want to share with the board, if you recall when Charles presented during the budget meeting, the changeover from our old funding formula to this new one, he used a very appropriate term that we need to live this for a year. We go to the two funds, the education and the operational fund, and while we feel we're very comfortable with our numbers and our dollar amounts, we still knew that we needed to go through this experience, although we weren't too concerned. Less than 7 days into the new year, the legislature decides they want to start tinkering with this new formula. You may see or you may have read basically what they were asking for is to put limiters on the amount of dollars you can transfer from one fund to the other. In this case, it was about 15%. Under the discussion of we want to drive more dollars into the classroom. I applaud that thought, but with that driving more dollars into the classroom, there's very little realization that this is a new process. Well, I think Lebanon is in really good shape. I know we are. There's a number of corporations that are going to struggle with this. A couple of issues that I think we need to be at least focused on as we go through this. And this is just, it's gone through committee. It passed under, as we would expect, partisan lines. But this could have potential influence on us in the sense that we haven't had a chance to live this for a year. And so this is a brand new bill. They come up with some adjustments and modifications. It has some concern to me. While we certainly, and the board has been advocates for providing compensation to teachers that have been aligned with what they deserve and what we can afford, this desire to drive, quote, dollars back into the classroom at no additional funding really puts into jeopardy some of the other issues that make the classroom possible. Food service workers, custodial workers, transportation workers, those folks that are essential to making sure our classrooms are clean, safe, students are well fed, everything's there. So I do this as a bit of a caution because I'm not quite sure where this is going, although I have some concerns. So while the financial statement is very good for us, we're not quite sure where this legislative directive is going to take us. And so we'll continue to hear that. And of course, in the news, the Los Angeles teachers strike and different entities. And again, I applaud the board's position of wanting to compensate teachers in a fair and equitable manner within our means. We have to keep in mind that our house is in order, but when other people want to try to fool with what we're trying to do or put limiters on us, it could have influence on what we're trying to do. So, not a panic yet. Just want to continue. We monitor that. We share with our administrative staff and also through our associations. We look at what a lot of the legislative recommendations are. And history will show a number of these things will drop by through committee, or some of them won't even get to committee. But I think it's important when you read some of those, you keep that in mind, that yeah, we all want to drive money into the classroom, but it can't be at the expense of all those other people. So I thank you for allowing me to share that. And
It's a pretty busy agenda that they've got going on.
Very aggressive. So, all right. This evening I bring to the board under routine staff matters, both ECA classified and staff communication. I would ask the board's permission, has been our practice, to again consolidate those into a consent agenda. Under classified this evening, we've presented for your review special needs aide, Title I aide, the addition of an SRO officer, 2 substitute teachers, a food service worker, and a custodian. Those are replacement positions, except for the substitutes. Obviously, we continue to strive to expand our substitute teaching pool. Mrs. Audinger does a good job of not only recruiting but also training those folks. Along with that, then, under the staff communications this evening, I bring for you a recommendation that I concur with. Ms. Kelly Solomon is recommending Ruthie Kasner for a temporary kindergarten position. This is the maternity leave position for Elizabeth King. It had to be Stokes. I would remind the board that we did approve an individual for this position early, but the individual served a day and they decided it really wasn't for them. So that you'll see that resignation submitted in the February meeting, but this is necessitating the approval of this position so we can continue as seamlessly as possible. And then this evening, Mr. Phil Levine is recommending, with Mr. O'Rourke's concurrence and mine as well, several positions for spring coaches. Under baseball, we have Mr. Rick Cosgrave as varsity head coach. We're splitting the assistant coach, which has been the practice in the past, and we're splitting the reserve varsity coach funding has been the practice in the past, and we have a freshman coach. We also have volunteer coaches as submitted there. As you know, volunteer coaches are many times some of our former athletes that come back and assist us when they can during their either time home from college or when they're allowed to, their schedule allows there to be there. Same with softball. The positions there for varsity. Head coach, varsity assistant, junior varsity coach, and at this time we do not have a 9th grade coach, but that will be determined later and brought to the board for your approval. And again, under volunteer coaches this evening, we present a number of individuals that's our former athletes, but have also worked with our program before and provide assistance, and also not only to provide skills assistance, but they provide leadership assistance. And I specifically asked Mr. Levine, you know, it seems like we got a lot of folks coming back. And he did a very nice job in sharing, you know, that not only do they come back to help with specific skills, but it's nice for our underclassmen, our seniors, to see where our graduates have had success and can come back, and so they also provide good role models. In track, then, too, we have a varsity coach, assistant, 2 assistants, or 3 assistants, excuse me, for track and field, and that covers both boys and girls. And also, again, a number of volunteer coaches there that have volunteered in the past. Tennis coach, Mr. Joe LePage, is back as the head coach, and Dave Wright is the assistant. We have volunteer coaches as well that are listed there. We have 4 of those this evening, including former head coach Mr. Roy Flannery is coming back. And in golf, we have the boys head coach is Mr. Kevin O'Neill, and we have 2 volunteers, and they've helped us in the past. One is Gary Parks, and the other is Mick Malakovic. So I present those for board's consideration and review this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Taylor. I just want to let you know I support all of them. I'm going to abstain from this vote. I have 2 family members that are being approved in this, a niece and a brother. So I know that they're just volunteer coaches, but I don't believe in voting on my own family members. So we have plenty of votes and we have quorum to do it. So I'm going to abstain from this vote. So can I get a motion for agenda routine staff matters A, B, and C?
I make a motion.
Lisa got it. Second?
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Mr. Wary, if I may, at this time, it's my pleasure with joining Chief Smith and I is our newest SRO officer assigned to Central Elementary, Officer Wayne Loney. Wayne came to us with a lot of experience, except he appears to be lacking. He didn't have any experience in recess duty, and he's jumped into that with full enthusiasm and engagement, as documented on social media.
Yeah, I've seen that documentation.
And apparently he also enjoys dining with young men and women and joining school cafeteria work. So, Wayne, we welcome you, Chief. Would you like to give us an introduction and any background, please?
Wayne comes from Marion County Sheriff's Department, over 20 years of experience. He has a long list of specialties, firearms instructor, active shooter instructor. He's very active in martial arts. Holds a couple first degree black belts and a few things, so I kind of stay away from him a little bit. But he is taking a great role at Central Elementary, and become grandpa to about 300 kids there. So he's doing a fantastic job as a
any comment?
All I know is I keep telling the kids, I'm very excited to be there with them. This is like one of the dream come true for me to be able to work in this capacity and be with these young people. And I get such a big kick out of having lunch with them. And I'll sit in there and I work in the cafeteria lady told me, she said, you know, we have a teacher now. I said, yeah, but there's no kids in there. Well, I like being with kids and interacting with them. You know, every time I walk down the hallway, you keep hearing these slappings down the next thing, giving high fives all the way down the hallway. And I just enjoy it. It's a big thrill to me, and I'm very happy to be here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Two terms I would never put together as police officer and giddy, but when Wayne came to sign up and process with Ms. Belter in our office, he was a policeman that was very giddy and excited about being here. So, and that has transitioned into his presence and interaction with the kids. So Wayne, welcome. You have a tremendous responsibility. We are very proud of our students and very, very concerned about their safety and well-being. You've been charged with ensuring that, and I think they're in great hands without any question. So welcome on board. Glad you're here. Glad you're part of the Lebanon family. Thank you. Wayne's also a parent of our one of the students in our school, if I recall correctly. Is that right? You have a daughter at our high school. Yeah, good, good. Well, Mr. O'Rourke, you know who to call if you have any issues with that particular young lady.
Well, she got Tuesday school.
Yeah. This is your first meeting, Mr. Wire. You may want to stay on track so we can move forward. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Thank you for the approval of those staff communications this evening.
Next agenda item, we have second reading for policy updates. Dr. Taylor?
As
Skip number 6.
yeah, let's go back to number 6. Is the conflict?
Oh, I'm sorry. I skipped over it.
I know you're just going to rubber stamp Charles,
know.
but
Recommendation for flooring contracts, Mr. Tate.
In your background information, you have the results of the bids put out for flooring work at Central, Harney, Middle School, Stokes, and Perry Worth. All this is to be done under our latest GO bond. And we continue to progress to take out carpet and replace it with VCT for healthy reasons, cleanliness, et cetera. There are some small offices and so forth that we are taking carpet and replacing with carpet, as you can see. Jack Laurie Floors recommending they receive the contract work for Central, Harney, and the middle school, and Mr. David's Flooring received the contract for Stokes and Perry Worth, totaling $230,534.
Thank you, Mr. Tate. I need a motion and a second to approve the flooring contract as presented by Mr. Tate.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second
Any questions?
Is this work gonna be done?
This summer, we'll start in June. That's one of the reasons we put the bids out so quick, so they could make sure they could start in June.
Do we have any, do we get anybody local, do we even have anybody flooring local?
These are there was another company, it's on the sheet, that we thought we'd get a bid from, Blakely's, but we did not. So these are the only two companies we got bids from.
Okay, any further questions? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign? Motion carried. Thank you, Mr. Tate.
Thank you.
Now, second reading for policy updates, Mr. Taylor.
Thank you. As is procedure and policy in Lebanon Community School Corporation, we do a staggered approval for new policy or policy changes. We had our first reading at the December meeting. As a reminder, just for record, the board is on the second reading for this month, and then we'll have a third and final approval next month in February. They are in your packet, but I will simply share again. We're looking at policy 6111, which deals with internal control standards and procedures. And from such that those documents are in your background notes if you want to look at those. We have 6212, which is cost saving initiative, which really wasn't a change. We changed school corporation and resources, and then looked at the funding changes. Again, a lot of these are dictated by the changes in funding names. We also have 6620, which addresses petty cash. We have 6210, which is fiscal planning, which allocates a superintendent designee for their responsibilities. We also have 6655, which is totally deleted. It's talked about the technology fund. We have policy 6800, which is a systems of accounting, and again, it simply assigns individuals on an annual basis into those responsibilities. And the last policy for consideration of second reading this evening is 6144, which is the investment income. And again, that's a word change going from general fund to operations fund. But those are the policies that are presented for second reading this evening, and I will answer any questions the board may have on that at this time.
We get a motion to approve on second reading.
We don't need a motion. We'll have a motion to approve
Oh,
on the third.
that's right.
My fault.
It's got
My
a star
bad.
on there. My
If I
bad.
said that,
You
I'm
said,
sorry.
no, you said it, and I just was going by the star.
We just,
Any questions for Dr. Taylor? Okay. Another 8, other business. Important dates we've got. Our next upcoming February 19th, regular school board meeting in Herman B. Wells. Anybody else have any good news for the board? Anything they want to say new business-wise? Other business?
Stop arm violations, are we still?
I will defer to Chief Smith at this point. I know we're still writing them. Where we're at, as last I heard, we had one prosecution, or one pending prosecution. Chief, could you address that for us, please?
38 violations, 23 citations have been written, 15 we were unable to. We've had 3 trials in court so far, 2 guilty, 1 found not guilty, we did prove the driver. We have 3 trials coming up in the next couple of weeks, so it's been busy, it's still to be constant. We're still in a learning process between the bus drivers and acquiring the videos and pictures and getting that to John Morris out at Prairie Worth, who's taken over the stop arm violations. But making progress, we've been contacted by the sheriff's department. They're gonna do some extra patrols with us, putting a deputy on the bus and having another deputy car close by in some of the rural, traffic stops and then bus stops to further help assist in curtailing the passing of the stop arm. So we're making progress and, it's going pretty good.
I know we had one this afternoon, I heard it on the bus radio. Bus driver called in, said had stop arm violation this afternoon.
Chief Smith, 38 is the total for the year?
So far, yes.
Yeah, all right.
Is that,
Yeah, getting there.
Thank you.
You know, working.
yeah, we're getting there. That's a great way to put it. Yeah, we're moving forward with it. So. Just, and I was a little remiss, I think it's very important. Well, we had our first big winter storm, Saturday and Sunday. People would think, well, it really didn't impact school. But I want to share and give my compliment to the building and grounds crew. They were in on the weekend plowing snow, moving snow, getting ice, or getting salt down on the ice. And so while that wasn't during normal school hours, their work allowed us to open school and ensure it was safe. Our parking lots, our sidewalks, the entrances and exits to the buses. And so that's kind of one of those unseen support services that money isn't driven to the classroom, but if those folks don't do the job they do on Saturday and Sunday, people are going to have a hard time getting in the classroom. So I just want to make sure, I know Charles supervises that group, but and he's very complimentary of them, but I also want to make just public announcement that we appreciate the work that the building and grounds crew did in getting our schools ready for opening on Monday.
And with the possible storm, can you tell us again how many days we got filled in for?
Yes, as far as inclement weather days at this point, we had 2 built in, and we had the option to use our 2 federal holidays in January and February. We've had 1 day that we missed, and that was a kind of a fog, bad weather day, and we opted to use May 24th as our first makeup day, and that's the first one. If we have, I'm saying if, not when, if we have another need to close school, we have the 3 days. If it happens Friday, and meteorologists are 50% wrong and 50% right, just ask them. They're always right, they just miss the right call. We would not take the Monday. I believe it's too short of a time. People have made plans, there's lots of things going on. It's just didn't, it's not appropriate business. So that would move to then we would decide internally, do we go to the 30th or do we go to Martin Luther King in February? At this time, I'm inclined to say we'd probably utilize our Martin Luther King Day, because we may have more days after February. And if we say, okay, we're not gonna use that, we'll use May 30th. We've kind of exhausted our options. And if something happens 1st of March, which we all know come boys sectional time, Indiana weather goes south quickly. So that's where we're at. So at this time, we have basically 3 days for potential use. 2 days for potential use for making up inclement weather. If we go beyond that, we have built-in options that would not impact on graduation, but if we can become excessive and the state says, no, you have to make those days up, we can still appeal. And state may, IDOE may say, yeah, you're granted a waiver, instead of your 180 attendance, you can have 178. Then we would go that route. Worst case scenario, then we would have to move commencement, because we have to have a full 180 days of instruction prior to hosting commencement, in graduation. I'm looking at the experts. I think I covered it all. Did I say I apologize? My apologies. I'll stay with the January, February federal holidays. I get that much better. So, okay. Did that help, Mr. Rather than my messing up the holidays? I apologize. Good. So I'm cautiously optimistic, but I'm still cautious. And again.
Yeah, I know it was, what, 3 or 4 years ago, we were running close.
And Mr. Rourke has those contingencies built in, although we don't want to use them. That really consolidates that end of the year for our seniors and secondary kids. Elementary, middle, not so much. But I believe we can do that. And then I can update the board at this time. Our e-learning process is moving forward with every intention to have that available and operational for this type of scenario. As we introduce it, we'll continue to be ongoing as far as we refine it. How do we utilize it? How do we do everything that needs to be done? But Ms. Scott and Mr. Martin have taken that task on, and they're continue to provide me weekly updates. And we will meet the target date of having that ready to implement for the 19-20 school year. Okay.
Anything else? Meeting's adjourned.
Not sure, Mr.
Can you
Keith,
turn
did
your-
he beat Church Best?
No.
No, it was
Dave's-
20-something.
yeah.